So today we're going to do a landscape using pouring technique and also a little bit of brushwork, and I'll show you how to do both. But quite fast and simply we can come out with a pretty cool landscape. This is what we're going to do today. So let's get started. Okay, so today we are going to do a poured landscape. So we're going to choose a few colors, not too many. I think we will go with botanical, and let's go with a little bit of denim, and let's go with a little bit of sunshine yellow. Okay, starting with our denim, we're going to do our sky. And we need lots of alcohol. Okay, so we start with our sky, and we decide how far down we want to take it, but I put down some alcohol, some pure alcohol, and then I put my denim into that, and it starts to thin out with that pure alcohol in there. So we just start moving it around, bringing it down our page. So it's up to you how much sky you want to do. I think I want a really big, bold sky, so I'm going to bring mine fairly low down and add a little bit more ink, so I've got lots to play around with. Let's get some going here. So with art, you always want to make sure that a good composition idea is this rule of thirds. So I'm going to go with 1/3 land, 2/3 sky. So I'm just moving it back and forward. And actually, I've just decided I'm going to add just a little bit of pink. So the pink I'm going to use is flamingo, and just going to add this to the bottom. And I want those colors to mix, so again I want to add more alcohol, so I add it just below that line, so then it starts to push it this way, but then I'm going to go back and forth still, and maybe I'll just add a little bit more blue to that so it really starts to mix in. Just going back and forth, left to right for now. And then again, right at the bottom of that line, I'm squirting some more of my pure alcohol, and then I'm just going to let it move up. I'm going to let it go really off there. Just going to let some of that paper towel catch some of that alcohol. Sometimes you have to let it drip off the sides. Sometimes there's too much liquid on there. But I just keep going back and forth, and as the alcohol starts to evaporate, we have less and less movement happening. So I like to keep going until there's hardly any. It depends on how smooth you want to get it, but I'm trying to get some texture in there. Actually going to remove some of this heaviness here because it's just too much, and then I'm going to bring in more alcohol, just because I want it to be lighter down towards the base of my sky, or the horizon line. So just by adding more alcohol, just helps to thin it out just that little bit more. Trying to fill in any of these gaps as I go. So sometimes I'm on a diagonal with my tilt, other times it's just straight across, depends on where I need to fill. So I'm quite liking what's going on between the colors here. I'm just going to let a little bit more of my paper towel soak that up. And then we're going to see how that dries. Going to just dab in so there's no too heavy a line anywhere. Actually, I want to get this a little bit thinner, so I'm going to add more alcohol and start tilting it again. Quite like this. This is looking kind of cool. It's almost like storm. So bring that down just a little bit further. Then I'm going to go back the other way as well. Okay, quite like the colors that we're getting in that. We're just going to let that dry a little bit more. Okay, so we now have our beautiful sky. So it's pretty much dry, so we can come in and do our green bit. Don't need to worry about this too much. This other color will take over. So I'm going to use a straw with this one, just so I've got a little bit more control. I'm going to put a blob of pure alcohol in there with some yellow. And then I'm just going to, this straw is not very clean, but that's okay because I'm going to add more color to it anyway. But if you wanted to have pure yellow showing, you'd want to make sure that your straw was clean. And I just move it around. Then I'm going to take my botanical and add that in there as well. Add a little bit more alcohol. I'm a bit more reserved with how much alcohol I use, only because I don't want it to bleed up into the sky. So move that around. Might add some yellow back in, just so that we get some different tones happening. And I quite like it when you see these little peaks coming in towards the horizon. Just helps add this idea of trees and things in there. Then I'm going to bring in my really clean palette, which is just a tile, but this is where I put any ink that I want to have a bit more control with. So I'm going to bring in my denim blue again with a brush, and I don't want it to move too much, so I've waited till this is dried just a little bit. Still fairly wet, so it's going to bleed a bit, but not too wet. When it's too wet, you have no control, but you also don't want it too dry, because then you don't have the same organic nature of these inks. So I'm bringing in some denim blue to help create this neater horizon line. Going back and forth with the two colors, the yellow and the denim blue. Just trying to get a little bit more depth in here. Almost creating like these mountainous area, this mountainous area. To clean your brush, I usually use just some alcohol, pure alcohol. And I dip my brush and then wipe it onto a paper towel. This doesn't have to be super clean. I use this dirty alcohol just to clean my brush. I dip it in and wipe it onto a paper towel. See how we got this cool effect happening in the sky? It's kind of gone and done its own thing, which is kind of nice. So I want to add a bit more detail in here, so I'm going to add in some more yellow with my cleaned brush. Using my brush to create a bit of a sharper edge where I want the tops of my hills to be. So I'm using ink that's partly dried, so it's got less movement to it once the alcohol started to evaporate from it. So there's a fine line between it being too wet and too dry, but with practice you'll get to see the benefits of each. I'm going to add in 1 or 2 bushes down here, so I'm going to use that other color, that pistachio, and with still the blue on my brush because it will help to darken this green a little bit. I'm just going to come in with some of this pistachio. And we just let these little bushes kind of grow. But I want this bit to go darker, so I've let it dry, giving it a few seconds, and then I'm going to come in with a little bit more of the same color. So then it starts building up these edges for us. And then we get varying tones as well. Let's do the same on this little bush down here as well. You can add a little bit more alcohol to our palette just to help get that reactivated a little bit more. So there we go. I think we're going to keep it as simple, a simple little landscape.